Hello, my name is Aaron, and I recently visited Busch Gardens Williamsburg for the first time. I'm excited to review it. Let's have a quick look at some of the footage I got, and then we'll get into the review. Alright, so to start off, I just wanted to cover briefly just kind of the overall experience and ambiance of the park. And having been used to mostly Six Flags parks, I was pleasantly surprised. There's a great deal of theming going on, hence the name theme park. Theme park and amusement park are kind of used interchangeably, but in this case I think it is important to make that distinction because Busch Gardens does have a really good theme, several themes in fact. As you can see from this map here, there's various different areas. They're all themed after different countries. So you've got Scotland and you've got France and so on, and each area has kind of its own little theme, its own architecture, and its own music, and it's just all just really good presentation overall. The value overall is comparable to most theme parks, so it's not a super great deal. It's also not crazy expensive, and really just the theme overall was pretty impressive. And one of the things that I liked was just the amount of trees in the park. There's really just a whole lot of trees, which unfortunately made shooting footage a bit difficult. So I didn't get a lot of footage because a lot of the rides are just nestled in the trees, and that's kind of neat. We'll cover the rides later on individually, but just really great ambiance to the whole park overall. With that, let's go ahead and talk briefly about the food options. Alright, so everyone knows that theme park food is always expensive, and it's usually not that great in my experience. Here specifically, I thought the food was okay. But my main gripe was that they really didn't have a lot of vegan-friendly options. Granted, we only looked at a couple places, but just especially compared to Six Flags New England, which is the park that I visited most recently before this, that park had a lot of accommodations and a lot of different options, but this park less so. And it was just pretty typical prices, which is to say expensive for what you get. Overall, food is kind of a thumbs down. Now with that, let's go ahead and get into the rides, which of course are the real reason that people go here. Alright, so let's get into the part that most people are here for, which is the rides. I assume that the rides are the primary reason that most people visit an amusement park. And I did go on a few of the non-roller coasters. So there was a swinging swing ride. That's redundant. But anyway, it was called Finnegan's Flyer. That one was terrifying for me, but if you enjoy that sort of thing, I guess it's a good ride. It kind of puts you over the edge a bit, and that was terrifying. And there was also a rotating drop tower ride, and it kind of spins as you go up and then drops you. That one I also probably should not have gone on, but I did, and it was terrifying. And then there was a log ride, and that one I do not recommend. The line was far too long, and it was way short. It literally just goes up, turns around, and then drops. It was not worth the wait. Don't recommend the log ride. I can't remember what it was called, but that one was not worth it. So those were some of the smaller rides. They also have a scrambler, which I didn't go on because I don't do circles, and just a handful of other rides. There's a swinging ship that I didn't go on, as well as a few others. Now, unfortunately, most of their dark rides were closed, so those are kind of the indoor mine cart rides, or the ones that go indoors and you sometimes you shoot things, sometimes they're just thematic. Those were all closed, I assume due to precautions, so I wasn't able to ride any of those. But we were able to go on all of the roller coasters. So I'll cover these in the order that I went on them, and later on, hopefully in the next couple weeks, I plan to do a video ranking all of them. So if you'd like to watch that, make sure that you are subscribed. The first coaster we went on was Griffin. We just kind of did a counterclockwise loop. And Griffin was the first drop roller coaster that I'd been on. So these are ones that take you up and then they stall at the top of a near vertical or vertical drop. This is the first one I'd been on, and I enjoyed it. It's a bit short, but it's smooth, and it was just a really good ride. I rode it twice. The front row is obviously the best, and it's got a splashdown element, and just a really fun ride overall. Again, it is pretty short, and aside from the drops, it's really nothing too crazy, but it was a good ride. The second coaster that we went on was Invader. This one's got a sort of Viking theme to it, and it's more of a family coaster, but it was still pretty good. It's got a tunnel on the first drop, and just a lot of just kind of ups and downs, your standard airtime hills. I enjoyed it. They were only running one train, so it was pretty slow getting on it, but the ride was good. And that brings us to the next one, which is Alpengeist. So Alpengeist is an inverted coaster, meaning you're below the track. And this one, I rode it twice, and I liked it considerably less the second time. It's a good coaster with really good elements. It's got a cobra roll. It's got just a lot of near miss elements where you're flying past. The theme is some sort of alpine ghost that's just storming through a mountaintop village. And there's a lot of near miss elements where you're flying through the trees and flying through the village. So really great in that aspect. I just found it a little rough, and maybe I just didn't quite find the right seat, but I rode it in the front and near the back, and just it was very rough, especially I felt on the transitions between the elements. So while it was like going through the helix, it was fine, but as soon as it switched to something else, the transitions were rather jarring. So I probably shouldn't have rode it twice, but the line was super short. It was a walk-up, and yeah, so I wasn't a huge fan of Alpengeist. But the next coaster that we went on was fantastic, and that's Verbolten. So this one has really great theming, and it's themed to essentially a forest that's been experimented on, and it's possessed, and really great theming throughout the queue and the station and the ride itself. And this one I'd heard about, but I'd kind of just forgotten about. So when I went on it, I was surprised, and I was like, and then afterwards I remembered, oh yeah, this is the one with the drop and the indoor section. So I remembered after the fact, but during the ride I was kind of caught off guard. There's a cool indoor part that almost feels kind of like Space Mountain. There's a drop where the ride drops just down, and that didn't catch me off guard because I knew it was coming, but it's still fun. It's got a just really great theme, just really fun ride overall. Highly recommend that one. And after that, we went down into the Roman area, and Pantheon is still under construction as of this time. And so we went on Apollo's Chariot. This is just a big, just hypercoaster. I may be using the wrong coaster terms there, so I'm probably losing some credibility with some people, but so I'm sorry. But it's just meant for airtime and hills, and just, you know, the standard thing that you think of when you hear roller coaster. That one was really good. It also had a very short line. The lines were pretty short overall on this trip, and so we rode it twice, and I rather enjoyed it. Didn't get quite as much airtime as I'd hoped, but it was still a very good ride nonetheless. That brings us to the ride right next to it, which was Tempesto. So this is a launched roller coaster. It's a Premier Skyrocket 2, and it is a clone, which means there are multiple rides out there that are exactly the same. So Electric Eel at SeaWorld San Diego, it's the same exact ride, just different theming. And I was surprised at how much I enjoyed this ride. My one complaint was just that the comfort collars weren't actually very comfortable. They added these massive blocks to the top of them. So instead of just being anyway, the restraints were not very comfortable, but the ride itself was good. It launches you a couple times in different directions, and I actually enjoyed that more than I thought I would. Now, the last ride of the day that we went on was the final coaster, which is the Loch Ness Monster. And this one, maybe we should have hopped on this first thing, because maybe just by the end of the day, my body was just kind of done with coasters. Not as young as I used to be, I guess. But this one was rough. It's an old aero looper, so I guess I shouldn't have expected much. It is long, so it's got that going for it. You definitely get like your ride's worth as far as length and stuff is concerned. It's got 2 loops, and overall just like not a terrible coaster, just rough and a bit old, like most of your aero loopers these days. So that's Loch Ness Monster, and those are my thoughts on the coasters. Let's go ahead and transition to my final thoughts overall. All right, so what are my overall thoughts on Busch Gardens in Williamsburg? I think it's certainly worth it, especially if you're in the area already. Probably wouldn't go out of my way, but it's definitely worth it, especially for Bolton. So we might be getting a bit of a spoiler here on my ranking of the coasters, but it's good theming overall, and pretty fast dispatch times. Again, I'm used to Six Flags, which is very slow at loading up the coasters. So Busch Gardens was considerably faster in that regard, and I think that helped keep the lines down. On our trip, may have just been that it was on a Monday, but we had very little time spent in line. Really, the longest ride was for the log ride, which I mentioned was just not worth it. But most of the coasters, we could just walk up to the station platform and almost hop on right then. So overall, great value, great theming, and I would definitely recommend it. So thank you for watching the video. Again, if you want to see my ranking of the coasters, then stay tuned. My name is Aaron, and I hope to see you again in another video. Take care. Bye.